Unbroken, Chapter 1, pages 5 through 7. The boy's name was Louis Silvi Zamperini. The son of Italian immigrants, he had come into the world in Olean, New York on January 26, 1917. 11 and a half pounds of baby under black hair as coarse as barbed wire. His father, Anthony, had been living on his own since the age of 14, first as a local coal miner and a boxer, then as a construction worker. His mother, Louise, was a petite, playful beauty, 16 at marriage and 18 when Louis was born. In their apartment, where only Italian was spoken, Louise and Anthony called their boy Toots. From the moment he could walk, Louis couldn't bear to be corralled. His siblings would recall him careening about, hurdling flora, fauna, and furniture. The instant Louise thumped him into a chair and told him to be still, he vanished. If she didn't have her squirming boy clutched in her hands, she usually had no idea where he was. In 1919, when 2-year-old Louis was down with pneumonia, he climbed out his bedroom window, descended one story, and went on a naked tear down the street with policemen chasing him and a crowd watching in amazement. Soon after, on a pediatrician's advice, Louise and Anthony decided to move their children to warmer climes of California. Sometime after the train pulled out of Grand Central Station, Louis bolted, ran the length of a train, and leapt from a caboose. Standing with his frantic mother as the train rolled backward in search of the lost boy, Louis's older brother Pete spotted Louis strolling up the track in perfect serenity. Swept up in his mother's arms, Louis smiled. "I knew you'd come back for me," he said in Italian. In California, Anthony landed a job as a railway electrician and bought a half-acre field on the edge of Torrance, population 1,800. He and Louise hammered up a one-room shack with no running water, an outhouse behind, and a roof that leaked so badly that they had to keep buckets on the beds. With only hook latches for locks, Louise took to sitting by the front door on an apple box with a rolling pin in her hand, ready to brain any prowlers who might threaten her children. There, and at the Gramercy house where they settled a year later, Louise kept prowlers out but couldn't keep Louis in hand. Contesting a foot race across a busy highway, he just missed getting broadsided by a jalopy. At 5, he started smoking, picking up discarded cigarette butts while walking to kindergarten. He began drinking one night when he was 8. He hid under the dinner table, snatched glasses of wine, drank them all dry, staggered outside, and fell into a rose bush. On one day, Louise discovered that Louis had impaled his leg on a bamboo beam. On another, she had to ask a neighbor to sew Louis' virtually severed toe back on. When Louis came home drenched in oil after scaling an oil rig, diving into a sump pump well, and nearly drowning, it took a gallon of turpentine and a lot of scrubbing before Anthony recognized his son again. Thrilled by the crashing of boundaries, Louis was untamable. As he grew into his uncommonly clever mind, mere feats of daring were no longer satisfying. In Torrance, a one-boy insurgency was born. If it was edible, Louis stole it. He skulked down alleys, a roll of lock-picking wire in his pocket. Housewives who stepped from their kitchens would return to find that their suppers had disappeared. Residents looking out their back windows might catch a glimpse of a long-legged boy dashing down the alley, a whole cake balanced on his hands. When a local family left Louis off their dinner party guest list, he broke into their house, bribed their Great Dane with a bone, and cleaned out their icebox. At another party, he absconded with an entire keg of beer. When he discovered that the cooling tables at Meinzer's Bakery stood within an arm's reach of the back door, he began picking the lock, snatching pies, eating until he was full, and reserving the rest as ammunition for ambushes. When rival thieves took up the racket, he suspended the stealing until the culprits were caught and the bakery owners dropped their guards. Then he ordered his friends to rob Meinzer's again. It is a testament to the content of Louis' childhood that his stories about it usually ended with, "and then I ran like mad." He was often chased by people he had robbed, and at least 2 people threatened to shoot him. To minimize the evidence found on him when the police habitually came his way, he set up loot stashing sites around the town, including a 3-seater cave that he dug in a nearby forest. Under the Torrance High bleachers, Pete once found a stolen wine jug that Louis had hidden there. It was teeming with inebriated ants. In the lobby of the Torrance Theater, Louis stopped up the pay telephone's coin slots with toilet paper. He returned to regularly feed the wire behind the coins stacked up inside, hook the paper, and fill his palms with change. A metal dealer never guessed that the grinning Italian kid who came by to sell him armfuls of copper scrap had stolen the same scrap from his lot the night before. Discovering, while scuffling with the enemy at a circus, that adults would give quarters to fighting kids to pacify them, Louis declared a truce with the enemy, and they cruised around staging brawls before strangers. To get even with the railcar conductor who wouldn't stop for him, Louis greased the rails. When a teacher made him stand in a corner for spitballing, he deflated her car's tires with toothpicks. After setting a legitimate Boy Scout state record in fire friction ignition, he broke his record by soaking his tinder in gasoline and mixing it with match heads, causing a small explosion. He stole a neighbor's coffee percolator tube and set up a sniper's nest in a tree, crammed pepper tree berries into his mouth, spat them through the tubes, and sent the neighborhood girls running. His magnum opus became legend. Late one night, Louis climbed the steeple of the Baptist church, rigged the bell with piano wire, strung the wire into a nearby tree, roused the police, the fire department, and all of Torrance with apparently spontaneous pealing. The more credulous townfolk called it a sign from God. Only one thing scared him. When Louis was late in boyhood, a pilot landed a plane near Torrance and took Louis up for a flight. One might have expected such an intrepid child to be ecstatic, but when the speed and altitude frightened him. From that day on, he wanted nothing to do with airplanes. In a childhood of artful dodging, Louis made more than just mischief. He shaped who he would be in manhood. Confident that he was clever, resourceful, and bold enough to escape any predicament, he was almost incapable of discouragement. When history carried him into war, this resilient optimism would define him.